I think that this doesn't mean it can't be, like you talked about, a home run. To me, it just feels like status quo.
Like your computer is running too slow and you've got 20 tabs open and you close one tab and you're like, so is my computer faster? Is everything fixed? You had a chance to control alt delete and kind of reboot the franchise.
I have embraced when I'm wrong, and maybe I'll be wrong, but we will see.
Now, from the Connors and Ferris podcast studio, this is the Buffalo Plus podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus podcast, emergency podcast. Mike Catalana, I am Jenna Cottrell. We got Dan Fates and Ryan Fates joining us from Fairport. All right, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. The Buffalo Bills have found their new head coach, Michael, as Buffalo naming Joe Brady their guy, just as expected.
In the building, right?
In
Joe
the building.
Brady's been in the building. I'll start with this. Of course it can work. Joe Brady's been there. He's had success as offensive coordinator. It can work. It just surprises me because they talked about change. They talked about needing a change. They talked about hitting the wall, and yet they then elevate a coach who's been part of this process, 2 years plus as the offensive coordinator, before that as the quarterback's coach, a key person in the organization, and it then leads itself to a lot of the same without Sean McDermott trying to make it better. It's not the major change that we thought, or at least a lot of us thought should happen. It's just it's a odd way to do a big swing. I thought it was going to be outside the building. It's inside the building.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And obviously Tuesdays are my daddy daycare days. So if you see babies running around or sitting in my lap, I'm feeding them as much snacks as possible to occupy them. We did not necessarily expect this to be done today. We knew it was a possibility. Jenna, I think for me, the most surprising thing was just the fact of we all thought it was going to be a big swing. And even the most staunch McDermott defenders who defended him and said, hey, he's a great coach, but I can understand after 9 years and not getting over that proverbial playoff wall and not being able to get over the hump, you could see change. We thought they would take a big swing, whether it was Grant Udinski or we talked in the last video here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, Davis Webb, somebody fresh, somebody new, a new pair of eyes in the building. This doesn't feel like a big swing. From my comments on my tweets and the replies and around social media, it just doesn't feel like it. I thought they would take a real swing at change and a big swing to try and hit that home run higher, to try and find that young, shiny whiz kid, the next Sean McVay, the next Shanahan, the next KOC. Like you thought that's what they would do. And you could get behind that. I think everybody could get behind that. And this just feels like, in a baseball term, it feels like a sacrifice bunt. It feels like you had guys on first and second and you bunted them into scoring position. You can still drive them in. You have Josh Allen. You can still drive in those runners and have a big inning. It just feels a little meh. It just feels that it just doesn't feel like it is the most exciting move when it felt like the direction of the franchise was going to change and it was at a crossroads. And yeah. Jenna, you asked you asked Terry Pegula, like Beane and McDermott were so intertwined with their success. How could you differentiate and fire one and promote the other? And Pegula was like, yeah, it's a big risk. This doesn't feel like a risk. This feels like you're just running it back again.
Yeah, I'm honestly very surprised. I kind of, in my mind, I'd worked myself, okay, Grant Udinski, I can see Davis Webb, I can see, do they have experience? No. Would you have to give them some runway? Yes. But I think about how they've been talked about in rooms of being the Sean McVay type, being these innovators, being these guys that are just outstanding at what they do. And the appeal of that, I said, okay, they made this disruptive move to fire Sean McDermott. This is an opportunity at real freshness, at real newness, at real making a change that could massively impact this team. Because remember, the success that the Bills have had, they've been this close, but there is a jump from this close to getting to the top. So I thought having a maximum potential in terms of offense would be that next step to get them there. And then to see Joe Brady, I was kind of like, huh, really? It just feels like Dan, what you talked about, the scheme continuity and what that looks like. And while I think that this doesn't mean it can't be, like you talked about, a home run, to me, it just feels like a bit like status quo. And I feel like also, Mike, and I don't want to speak for you, but to me, it's like either this was the plan to me all along, or the Bills kind of got caught in a spot where things didn't go according to the plan. And they said, oh, well, we got our guy in Joe. What do you make of that?
Well, let's go with the first thing. What did the Bills tell us? This was Terry Pagula's decision to fire Sean McDermott, right?
That's where I struggle, because
Okay,
Terry talks about being in that locker room after the Bills lost and how impactful that was into his decision. Joe Brady was also in that locker room.
Yeah. Yes. I'm saying is, if you go by what they said, it was Terry Pagula. He made the call. Let's just, for argument's sake, say that is accurate. That's how you could catch your general manager and your team off guard to know you're going to need a head coach, right? So you put it in that spot. You're like, oh, okay, we're firing him. And now you go into this process, and you are interviewing a lot of coaches who have limited experience. So now you put yourself in a spot of going, better the young guy we know than a guy from outside the building. You want to make that argument, and your owner put you in that spot? Okay, I could see how you go in this route. But there's another route to say, whereas it became a team thing, and Brandon Beane moved into a more powerful role, and now this new coach is going to report to Brandon Beane. And it is a different setup. I don't know if these young coaches pushed back at all. I don't know what they wanted. I don't know what Brian Daboll wanted. He's already gone. He's going to Tennessee to be the offensive coordinator. I don't know if any of them looked at it and said, I'd like more control of my coaching staff. I'd like to look at more of the roster opportunities. I think this head coach is going to be the head coach. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot more power in the front office. A lot of organizations run that way. The Eagles run that way, and they've had success doing it. It's different. So that's the part I kind of go, all right, did you, like you said, it was already preordained, or you got caught off guard? Either way, not exactly a position of strength to make this change, Dan, that they were like, okay, we need this major change in order to get past this part where we're blocked in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it feels like it's a little bit of a tough sell. I mean, we're seeing the comments, and while Terry Pagula may not follow everything on social media, fans aren't really thrilled, or the thing I've seen a lot is uninspired. Now, to play devil's advocate, because we are trying to show both sides here on Buffalo Plus. It's what we try to realistically analyze everything, all of this stuff. I don't know how inspired necessarily I was when Sean McDermott was hired. It was kind of like defensive coordinator from Carolina. Okay. But he brought culture. Okay. And that obviously worked. But what I feel is fascinating about what has transpired, at least on the social media and the fan base side, was that there were people that were McDermott didn't deserve to get fired, right? And then there were the other people that were excited about something new. There were the people that thought McDermott should be staying, Beane should be gone, and then there were the people of excited for change. And I feel like the fan base is unified that this wasn't the move. This, no matter what you wanted, you dropped a spoon. Yep, I'm sorry. Also, don't judge her hair. She woke up from a nap. I'm going to get comments as the girl dad that I am that this isn't the best hair day for my wife's going to kill me for how Ryan looks. But I guess I just look at this and I say, Mike, we were kind of joking around before, we kind of started getting on here. There will be a lot more Sean McDermott stories that come out, fairly or unfairly, about him being the problem. And it kind of feels like the reason you made the change was because you felt like you had hit the plateau, or that things had kind of gotten stagnant. And I made the, kind of joking analogy because that's what we do. And it's not golf and it's not baseball, but like your computer is running too slow and you've got 20 tabs open and you close one tab and you're like, so is my computer faster? Is everything fixed? Come on. Everything's going to work right now. And you had a chance to control alt delete and kind of reboot the franchise and reboot the direction. And this just kind of feels like, to Jenna's point, which I thought was really good earlier, this just feels like status quo. And status quo hasn't been good enough, right? Like, that's the thing. The goalposts have been moved so far in a positive way of wanting the Super Bowl, wanting to get there. And this just feels like we're running it back.
Do you think that fans, Mike, will have less of a leash with Joe Brady because he's been such a part of Sean McDermott and the culture here and Brandon Beane? Do you feel like if he isn't successful, that there will be more pushback than if there was a younger head coach that maybe had some struggles early on? Because I could see that, the fact being, I think for some fans, if the Bills don't get off to a good start, people being like, they did all that for what?
Well, I would say because Joe has been part of the organization, and it certainly is a shorter runway for him. He knows everything that's going on in the place. I think fans are going to be expecting it to be a more seamless transition, right? That's fair. If you're being rational, a new coach coming in sometimes can struggle to try to get their footing. He's going to get a little bit of that, and he should, but not as much as a brand new coach would be. If you took the swing, like we've talked about, Udinski or Davis Webb. This is where I believe the general manager, to make it work for the general manager too, needs to change some things. Again, they're going to fit whatever narrative they want. Everybody in the world knows they need better wide receivers. Joe Brady knows that. Josh Allen knows that. Sean McDermott knew that. They all did. Brandon Beane was the last one to come around to that, and he knows it now too, because he already tried to. Joe Brady somehow is going to at least get the effort to do that for the offense. I think that can open up the offense somewhat. My point is, you are going to hear, you can blame whoever you want, right? You can blame Sean McDermott as much as you want. But when you're playing in games, Sean McDermott's going to be on his couch wherever watching the game, because I don't think he's coaching anywhere. So you can stop blaming him. Then it turns into Joe Brady. And Jenna, in terms of patience, it's only so much patience you're going to have. We're talking about a team, Josh is going to be 30. This is what we're talking about. So you've already created the scenario where Sean's level, which is second round of the playoffs every year, a couple trips to the championship game, is the minimum this coach has to do. Minimum.
Yeah, there is pressure. Okay, I just wanted to mention this report as well, because I think this factors in too. Albert Breer saying, couple keys in the Bills' hire of Joe Brady. There was a head coach as CEO piece of every candidate's interview with Buffalo. Brady hit a home run on that. And Brady's promotion allows for scheme continuity and easy alignment with GM Brandon Beane, who made this call, as well as the scouts, saying alignment with them. I feel like this further shows, like, we know this power structure in Buffalo has been reassembled after the firing of Sean McDermott, as well as the promotion of Beane. But it does feel like for Beane, he got someone he obviously is already very familiar with, already is very familiar with the personnel, but it does feel like that power, Dan, and that control is still very much in place with Beane. Like that feels like that is an overtone of this decision.
Absolutely. And I think that I thought John Scott from one of our colleagues as Taylor. Oh, we need both on here. Sorry, guys. I know this is a very serious podcast. It's also okay. So we're all here. Okay. John Scott from WGRZ and a colleague of ours was just kind of also saying, look, I think anybody that followed the Bills this year, as fans and people here on Buffalo Plus that have liked and commented and subscribed, understand that the offense wasn't great this year and the roster wasn't great this year. And both of those people seemingly felt like they got promoted. And I think that's tough to kind of wrap your head around. So the power structure is what it is. That's what they want. And again, I think we talked about it earlier. It can work. This can work. It
Mhm.
can absolutely work. It just kind of like the Pagula Bean press conference. I don't think they hit necessarily the best notes. And with this hire, you're kind of getting that similar sense of leaving some more to be desired, to be honest.
I'm curious as to what influence Josh Allen had. Again, there was a report, I think it was Peter Schrager, saying that Josh was in on some of the meetings, which is kind of the way I thought it should be, in on some of the meetings, in the room, but not part of the final say. They hired Joe Brady, and there's nothing wrong with Josh wanting Joe Brady to be the head coach, right?
Yeah. I'm just laughing because yesterday, was it yesterday?
Yeah.
It was yesterday when we recorded our video. We said Davis Webb. Dan, you said Grant Udinski. We talked about Brian Dable. I originally thought that they had interviewed Brady out of like a goodwill, out of like, hey,
Also to give him an opportunity. He got other interviews. Like if they didn't
yes.
interview him,
I just
yeah.
felt like with what they said in the press conference and what their plan was, it wouldn't make sense that they would do this.
And Dan, of all times to leak a story, they should have leaked out there that they were still very interested in Joe Brady. They're just looking around the league to do the best job they can. That wouldn't have been a terrible thing to let people know if this was going to be the plan.
Yeah, when we opened up our last video and it was Schefter's report that it was possibly going to be Davis Webb, Brian Dable, or Grant Udinski, Schefter kind of felt like an afterthought of like, oh yeah, and Joe Brady. Like it didn't feel like it was something like that serious.
It's wild. I don't know. I'm still wrapping my head around it. But obviously, like we have said, I'm curious what it will be like when we go for the press conference in the introduction in Orchard Park. That has not at this point been announced when we're recording this, but that I'm curious of the tone of that. And I will say, here's what's good is Joe Brady knows the culture and he does know that locker room very well.
I'm with you on that because I said the next head coach doesn't inherit the culture. Joe gets some of that. I think Joe Brady is a popular guy in that locker room. I'm not disagreeing with that. And he certainly has the quarterback on his side. And I think players have adapted to him. It's just different. Now he's got the whole room. Now he's standing in front of the whole team. And maybe he'll be able to adapt to that. What the news conference is going to be like, I will say, I'm hopeful that we hear from Josh Allen. I think that may be the case, that he would speak on that day. So that'll be interesting to hear if he tells us anything. But
yeah, just interrupt for a second, guys. Breaking news: Shefty, Broncos defensive pass game coordinator Jim Leonhard is expected to be a leading candidate to become the next defensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, I like that move.
I like that move.
I like Jim Leonhard. I liked him when he was a player with the Bills. I always thought he would be the kind of guy that would have ended up at some point. His name has come up a few times. I do like that move. It goes
great
back.
Great college defensive coordinator. Kind of dominated the Big Ten for a while with his defense. So that was one of the big things. And we had talked about it with the fact of a new head coach coming in. Well, we had all thought that there would be massive change to the roster, massive changes to the coaching staff. I don't know if that's the case anymore.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, we don't know. It was implied with a change at head coach that it would be different, but with it being someone that's already been in that building, it makes sense that you are around your guys. So how much fresh new blood will there be with this move?
Well, that's a big one, though. If you're doing that on the defensive coordinator, that's a different system. It's a different player or different person. And I think the defense, that signals that there's going to be substantial change with the Bills' defensive side of the ball. I know we're doing this pseudo live. I feel a little bit better in general that they are, and this is not a slight on Bobby Babich because he worked with Sean. My assumption is that, well, if they're bringing in a new defensive coordinator, I would think Bobby's probably going to go somewhere else.
Yes.
That would be the case. But you have to do that, right? You can't turn around and do all those things, be upset about the way the defense played, hire the offensive coach, and then not make changes on the defensive side. So I think that greatly increases substantial change on the defensive side, both in staff and players,
Yeah.
because Jim Leonard, if he does get the job, is going to bring in some of his own, certainly some of his own people.
Yeah, and own philosophy and everything that goes into that. Oh, it makes sense.
And one other point I wanted to bring up was just the fact of, and maybe this is another, and again, I feel like they're taking shots online, but it is worth like kind of addressing the fact of Terry Pagula at the press conference was kind of defending Brandon Beane a lot. And the big thing was Keon Coleman wasn't Beane's pick, and it was forced on, was pushed by other members of the staff. You kind of thought that was Sean McDermott. Pagula kind of later corrected it was other members of the staff. So it feels like it's Joe Brady had a big part in bringing Keon to Buffalo. I guess I still have concerns, just like I have the last 5 years, of where they go with this wide receiver room, and giving Brady now, just like it was this year, talent for Josh Allen. Because yes, I like the continuity. I like that the head coach now has play calling experience. Those were all things I was looking at with candidates. For as much as I liked Udinski, I said, well, he hadn't really called plays before. But there is some sample size to the fact that Joe Brady was here when the Bills had a number one wide receiver in Stephon Diggs. And Stephon Diggs had a better year at 32 years old, coming off an ACL this year than he did when he was in Buffalo with Joe Brady. And I just don't want to gloss over this fact of like, well, Joe Brady's never had wide receivers, so we'll get him wide receivers. Mac Hollins had a better year this year in New England than he did in Buffalo last year, and he was pretty good in Buffalo. So I still have that concern in my gut of where does the passing offense go? I think that maybe this helps the offensive run game because you're keeping that continuity. And if I was Joe Brady, the first thing I would do is beg Aaron Kromer to come back, and that I need you back, bud. Like that would be a big thing. Like Belichick used to do with Scarnecchia in New England, and would keep that guy from retiring because he was really good on the O-line, because there will be changes. And so
I don't think I think Aaron Kromer was making a life decision to retire. I think Austin Gunn was probably going to get elevated. Let's see if that ends up happening. He was one of their coaches. I will say this. I put all the blame on that whole Keon Coleman thing on Terry Pagula alone. And even if Joe Brady liked him, 2 years later, he may not like him as much with some of the issues. And Brandon Beane, this is why I got to say, he knows he's got a problem at wide receiver, whether he had to be forced into it or not. And he just put his reputation on the line to give Joe Brady the job. He's going to want to give him help in the wide receiver room. I think it's got to be a priority. That, however it ended with Sean McDermott, that has to be a priority. I just cannot imagine that they don't address it this year. After all this, and now you promote the offensive coordinator, and you need it to be better. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the NFL knows they need to be better at wide receiver.
Yes. I think you go out and you make those changes to give Brady a fair shot of what things could look like as well. But it's funny, there will be changes, obviously, but with it being Joe Brady, it doesn't feel as massive of a cultural reset as I think maybe we expected even just yesterday.
That could be, like you said, that could be a plus.
Yeah. Because, the culture that Sean McDermott built has sustained a lot, and it has been very successful. And also, it's a move I think we weren't expecting with Joe Brady, just because the talk of freshness, of newness, of what this could look like. So in that way, it feels like what you're talking about, like that press conference earlier on last week, like the message didn't quite hit the right notes. But we'll have to wait and see, because that is something though. That really is.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, were you more surprised that Sean was fired or more shocked that Brady was hired?
Oh, that Sean was fired.
I was more surprised that Sean was fired. But that being said, when I got the text that it was Brady, I was like, what? Like I saw Joe Brady and Bills, and I knew it must have been the head coach. But I was like, really? It threw me off guard because we had talked so much about other candidates and their resumes and just the potential. And not saying that Joe Brady doesn't have potential, but obviously it's the devil you do know, you know,
If they wanted to set it up that this would not be as
Open
stunning
of a search.
That's right. They did make it a big open search and did not speak like I know it would have been tough in that first news conference for Brandon Beane to be talking about Joe Brady as the next head coach, but it could have gotten out there at least somewhat that gave the impression like they were serious about Brady being the head coach, and obviously they were. So fans are upset. People will come around. This is what happens. Josh will talk. He'll make everybody feel good about Joe Brady. I just have been through this before. They'll have free agency in the draft, and they're going to get some help for certain positions, and people are always usually optimistic in those times. Not every year, but usually optimistic. These things happen. The question's going to be, Sean McDermott left them with a big old high bar of second round of the playoffs, couple championship appearances. So that's what Joe Brady's looking at in his first ever head coaching job.
Yeah. I'm curious how the staff will fill out. That's obviously such a huge piece of this too, which we're still trying to wait and see. But
yeah, I was looking, they do need an OC.
Correct. Yeah.
And, I don't know, Ronald Curry's been the quarterback's coach, Kelly Skipper at running backs, Adam Henry, Rob Boris longtime tight ends, and what other changes they make. So we'll see when that happens. And when they do make this news conference, say it's maybe Thursday, we'll see when it is. We will be there.
Comment in also like what your guys' feeling is. Like, I feel like we always do a good job of these videos being soon enough after that we are getting raw emotion,
but it's not,
but tempered down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I had a tweet where I was like, I don't want to say anything rash. I'm trying to be level-headed. And I just said, I've been staring at my keyboard for 9 minutes. Like, I still haven't been able to put it. Matt Beauvais had the good one with the guy with the flannel shirt saying the Bills change next year. And it's the guy holding up the same exact shirt as the Christmas present. Like,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Because that's, again, and I think that's where, and Mike's right. Josh will talk. Everything will be fine. And then the expectations will mount as we move forward. It just,
on the bright side, we got a couple weeks. Fans can get to enjoy the Super Bowl coming up.
Do not. You know what verbal meme, Dan, I was thinking of is the boat where it's like, I hope you're hungry for nothing. No, that's just a fun, like, I don't know. I don't think it'll play out like that, but it's just a funny visual.
Yeah.
Verbal meme. But yeah. Well, there's that.
All right.
I think we all expected them to name a head coach. Obviously, after we recorded that video yesterday, but
yeah, look, I said, I don't know if I said it when we were on. I was wrong about Sean. I was wrong about Joe Brady being the head coach. I think I was right. I am open to be proven wrong. Yes. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I am. These things, though, it's funny. I feel like I always try to remember my initial reaction and see how I feel and how that plays out. Now, sometimes your gut instinct is right. Sometimes things need more time to develop, but we'll wait and see.
Well, my gut instinct, I think like yours, was shouldn't have fired Sean. I don't know if Joe was the right choice for head coach. I have embraced when I'm wrong, and maybe I'll be wrong, but we will see.
We shall see. All right, that'll do it.
Myself so hard into Udinsky last night. I had.
I did the same thing. Guy was homeless just so he could be closer to football, watching other teams. Like, great talker. Even Davis Webb, I was like, he's gonna have some.
By the way, I had a great story with Davis Webb.
He's gonna figure it out.
26 years old. He spoke like a 10-year NFL head coach.
Truly, listening to his press conference, I was like, you're gonna tell me this dude's 26 at the time of this? Yeah. Nuts.
I thought they would be wowed. I thought they'd be wowed by new shiny objects.
I agree. I thought it was a pendulum swing.
Yeah.
Well, again, this just feels even. it feels even more like doubling down that Sean was everything that was wrong.
Well, that is definitely what the message is, and so we're all going to watch very closely at how it plays out.
To me, it's that, and then it's Brandon. This is the Brandon Beane show.
Yep.
This is the success of this brand franchise is Brandon Beane will be, that's his tie to
Yep.
it. All right. All right,
I
for
appreciate
Dan.
everybody weathering along. Sorry for some background noise. I kept trying to mute my mic. And again, the kids, but I didn't want to
We're
miss
good.
this.
I was
We're all
saying,
good.
Yeah, all good. All right, for Dan and Ryan and Taylor and Mike, I'm Jenna. Thank you for watching Buffalo Plus, presented by Connors and Ferris in the studio. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We'll catch you next time here.
Now, from the Connors and Ferris Podcast Studio, this is the Buffalo Plus Podcast.